Before we start this video, a large thank you to Travis, E. Cougar, Matthew, Marcel, Tenatian, Cole, Andrew, Blast, Anton, Trevin, Canner, Jackson, Bobo, Simone, Corey, and Brain Dead Slime for their support on Patreon. I hope you guys enjoy the video. Good day, everybody. We're going to start this video off by making two new scripts. It's going to be called Take Damage Character Effect and Take Block Damage Effect. Now, why are we doing this? Because right now, if we ever want to change how our character calculates damage, we have to do it across multiple scripts. If we make these, it is conveniently tied just to these two scripts. And also, we can make the damage function itself exceptionally modular. So we're going to do that today. I'm going to start by opening up the Take Damage effect, and I'm going to put in my namespace. I'm then going to do the same to the Take Blocked Damage effect. Now, we're not going to actually work on the Take Blocked Damage effect today because most of the video will be tied into just the Take Damage effect. So we're going to start with that. Let's make it derive from the Character Effect class. So it is a character effect, and do the same for the Take Blocked Damage effect. Now, let's start by plugging in our values and what we need. So I'm going to make a header. I'm going to call this character causing damage. And this is a very useful variable. Basically, if the damage that is being caused to this character is being caused by another, we store that here in this variable. This doesn't always have to be the case. It can be just damage caused by an environmental trap or some other thing. But I'm going to make a note here saying if the damage is caused by a character, they are listed here. All right. Now right below that, let's make another header, and I'm just going to call this damage, and this will be all of your damage types: physical, fire, darkness, holy, lightning, whatever you have in the game, put them here. I'm just going to use the two I've used in previous videos because this is, again, just a demonstration. Feel free to add whatever you want to right there. So right below that, I'm going to make a header for poise, and this is the poise damage that the take damage effect is going to pass on to the character being damaged. I'm going to initialize all these at 0. And then I'm going to make a public bool for poise is broken. Start that at false. Basically, we're going to do a calculation whether or not the poise is broken, and from there we can know if we're going to play a damage animation or not. So, speaking of animation, right below that, make a header. I'm going to call mine animation. We're going to make a few variables here. The first one is public bool play damage animation. I'm going to initialize that at true by default. This is for if some effects you don't want to play a damage animation at all, like maybe environmental traps or small hazards. Next one will be a bool for manually select damage animation. That's if you want to actually insert your own damage animation and you don't want the script to take care of it for you. I'm going to initialize it at false because that's not true most of the time. And then I'm going to make a public string manual damage animation. That's just the damage animation itself, the name of it. Next, I'm going to make a header for sound effects. I'm going to make a public bool for will play damage sound effects. Start that off at true because that is true most of the time. Going to then make a public audio clip for an elemental damage sound effect. So this is an additional effect that you can play. If, say, you have fire damage, you want to play your regular damage sound effect, but then the sound of fire as well. So I'm just going to keep that null because that will change depending on what is being damaged, or what is causing damage, rather. I'm going to make a note here. An extra sound effect that is played when there is an elemental damage sound. So say you have fire or magic or darkness or lightning, you can basically insert one of those damage effects there as an extra damage effect on top of the normal one to kind of make it more polished, to make it pop more. Next, I'm going to make a header for directional damage taken from, and this is just basically the direction that we've taken the damage from. I'm going to store it as a public float angle hit from, and then I'm going to make a public vector 3 for the contact point, so we know where to instantiate blood. This is where you're struck on the cladders of your character. All right, cool. So that's mostly everything in terms of variables. Just going to insert these comments here on the side and not above to keep my conventions the same throughout. And I'm going to make another comment on the contact point in case that's kind of ambiguous for some people. It's going to say where the damage strikes the player on their body. There we go. All right, so right below that again, let's start off by making an override process effect, and we don't need the base effect, so we can just eradicate that. And then after that, let's start by making an if statement, and we're going to say if the character is dead, return. This is because obviously if the character is dead, we don't want to apply any more effects to them. We don't want to make them play an animation. We don't want to deduct from their health because that could break a state of sorts. So we're just going to say if the character is dead, return without running any logic. We also need to make another check for invincibility frames. So we're going to say if the character.isInvulnerable, return. So iframes or invulnerability, it just means the character can't be damaged. This is typically processed on things like rolls and any kind of dodge that you have in your games. I'm sure most of you know, but if someone forgot what this was for, I just figured I would state it again. All right, so right below that too, let's actually start making some pseudocode here and some comments about what we want this script to do exactly. So from the top to the bottom. So first I'm going to say calculate the total damage after defense and other effects. And then I'm going to say check which direction the damage came from. This will help us choose an animation, which factors in the direction and how much poise. The higher the poise, the heavier the animation. And the direction, obviously, front, back, left, or right. And then we're going to say play some damage animation. And then we're going to say play a damage sound effect and then a damage VFX, like a blood splatter. And lastly, if the character being damaged is an AI, and we do have a character causing this damage, we want to assign the AI a new target, the target being the character who caused them damage. This will make it so AI will switch back and forth in attacking people, or if you attack it from behind, then they will get you as a target and will just stand there. All right, so now that that's done, let's work on making the first bit of functionality, which luckily we have most of the logic for. The problem is the logic's in 3 places right now. We want to move it to 1, so it's more centralized. So let's make a private void calculate damage. Let's make it require a character manager variable. And then let's go and start writing some code, or in our case, let's go copy most of the logic and fix it. So right now it's on the AI, or the character stats manager. It's under take damage. So I want you to copy everything inside of this function and delete it, and delete the function as a whole. So after we delete it, you're going to get some errors. We're going to delete on the player and the AI character stat manager later, but we'll leave that until later. So let's paste all the logic and calculate damage. You don't need to copy the if is dead because we already run that check. So now wherever it says enemy character damaging me, replace with character causing damage. And then wherever it says things like, honestly, any variable that just says physical damage, fire damage, replace that with character.character stats manager. And then you should be fine. We can basically use everything in here. It is identical. It's just putting it on the script gives us a lot more modularity, and we can also make a lot more fine-tuning adjustments when a character receives damage. And this is also beneficial because it's now in 1 place instead of 3. It's a lot more simple. All right, so I'm just going to correct all of these variables. Again, if you see enemy character damaging me, replace that with character causing damage. And if you see any other red errors, just replace that with character.character stats manager, followed by whatever the red error was, because we're trying to get reads here from the stats manager. Erase that if character does have fully charged attack, because we're going to basically choose that when we actually swing our melee weapon. We're not going to choose that from the take damage effect, so you can delete that. All right, that's fine. Delete the play damage sound effect because we're going to play that in its own functionality. And now we just write calculate damage and pass our character. Excellent. All right, what's next? So we can do either one of these. I'm just going to go back here now and minimize this and just look over this for a second. Okay, so let's play the damage sound effects next. So we have this we could paste back here, but let's not just do that. Let's actually make a function for it because we can also give it its own special cases. As I said before, if you have elemental damage on top of your regular swing, let's say you want to play the damage swing, the default damage noise, but then you want to play a fire noise too, which is what happens in Souls. We could, let's first start by saying play damage sound effects. So we paste the play regular damage sound effect from our character sound effects manager, but then we make an if statement. We say if fire damage is greater than 0, then we know we have to play a fire damage sound effect. So then we play our elemental damage sound effect. And then if you wanted to, you could say if lightning damage is greater than 0, blah, blah, blah. I only have 1 elemental damage sound effect here. If you want to make multiple, you can. Like I said, I've only got fire. So you could even make a list on a world sound effects manager and just say, if damage is over 0, play this elemental damage sound effect, and then get it from an instance, singleton from the world sound effect manager. That's how I do it in Nephilim. Next, let's make a private void for check which direction the damage has come from. And this actually isn't going to calculate the direction. We do that on the damage collider still. This is going to take the information we got and then choose a damage animation based on that. So now this next bit is going to get, we're gonna layer on a lot more logic than before. So right now we used to only play a damage animation depending on the direction you hit from, and that's cool. But now we're going to do it also based on how hard the damage hits you. So over here we can copy, choose which direction the damage came from, and this is on the melee, or sorry, the damage collider. So copy the code, choose direction the damage came from and paste it, delete it from the damage collider. We're going to copy this and then delete this and paste it in here. All right, so this is basically how we calculate our directions. This is what the angle has to be. So right below that, let's make a private void called choose animation from, or choose animation forward. Let's make that more concise by saying choose damage animation forward. So we're going to make choose damage animation forward, backward, left, and right. Okay. And let's make it require a character manager. And then let's write some logic. So I'm going to paste this first and just make it back and then left and right. Now to save you some time, when I come back here and add the logic here, I'm going to go over one. Well, actually, it'll be very, very similar. So I can just quickly go over them all because I'm just changing one word in all of these when we're done. So let's go back up to the first one now. Choose damage animation forward. And what we want to do is inside here, make a comment. And I'm going to make a general poise bracket. Now, I'm just going to choose some random numbers. You can make what you want. I'm going to say if the poise is less than 25 and greater than 0, it's going to be small. And then I'm going to say if the poise is, we'll say greater than 25 and less than 50, it's going to be medium. And again, I'm just choosing random numbers here. Guys, you can tweak this how you want. Basically, this is just going to decide what kind of damage animation to play. And then we're going to say poise bracket. If it's, say, greater than 50 and less than 75, we'll say large. And then if for some reason, if it's over 75, it is colossal. Think of a boss hitting you and you flying across the screen. And large will be a greatsword hitting you. Medium will be a mace or a straight sword hitting you. And small will be a dagger hitting you. That's the idea I have in my head just when making these numbers. So now that we have that, we can actually make an if statement based on this poise bracket. So first of all, we know this is the damage forward, so we don't need to do anything with our direction. We say if poise damage is greater or equal to, or sorry, less than or equal to 24, and poise damage is greater or equal to 0, then we know this will be a small animation. And then likewise, we're going to say greater or equal to, or less than equal to 49, and greater or equal to 25. That will be your medium. And then you can have a large. By doing the same thing, you want to say it's going to be less or equal to 74 and greater or equal to 50. And then the last one will be colossal, which is if it's more than 75. And again, change these numbers to your heart's content. They don't matter ultimately. I'm just showing you how this is done. You can make as many brackets as you want. You could have a super medium, an extra large, and then a colossal, whatever you want to do. So inside here, I'm going to say if character dot is two-handing, we could play a two-handed damage animation. Else we could play one-handed. But for the sake of this video, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to keep it simple, so we're not here all day, but you can do this. If you want to have different versions for two-handed and one-handed, totally fine. Now, before we move on, I made a mistake here. This isn't manual damage animation. This is just called damage animation, the string, because this is filled in from here or from you manually elsewhere, but it's all the same. So we're going to say damage animation is equal to, and we're going to say character.character animator manager. Now, we don't want to play the same damage animation every time. So what we're going to do is we're going to make a list, and these lists are going to contain multiple damage animations each. Let's say you have a list for damage forward medium that could contain 1 to 3 medium animations from the forward direction. And then a large list or a heavy list rather, which could contain 1 to 3 from forward to large. Now, this is what I have in Nephilim. I know this is a lot. I'm not going to do all that here because if you know how to do it for one, you can do it for all of these, okay? So I'm going to erase all the two-handed ones, and I'm only going to keep 2 of each instead of having 3 to 4. So we have our forward medium, our forward heavy, our colossal, and we have our left, right, back, and we have medium, heavy, and colossal. So we have medium, heavy, colossal, and for each of those, we have 2 animations for forward, backwards, left, and right. Okay? So next, let's make lists for each of these. This is if you want them to be random. You can play 1 animation each time if you want, but I like having it random. So we can say public list string, and we want to make a list for each of these. So I'm going to say damage, animations, medium, forward, and then you would do damage animations, medium backwards, medium left, medium right, and then heavy forward, heavy back, heavy left, heavy right, and finally colossal forward, colossal back, colossal left, and colossal right. So the logic is identical for each of these. There's just a lot to type. If you want to have a lot of different variations in your damage, I encourage that because I really think it makes the game come to life. I know some people might not have all these animations. I know Mixmo, you can get some for free. A lot of packs on the new asset store have them. We have some in ours as well, but if you guys would like us to release a damage animation pack, just let us know. We have like probably over 80 damage animations, directional damage animations, and we'd always be happy to add more or make more. But yeah, you guys don't need this many. You guys, I mean, you can get one for each direction if you don't want to change the animations based on attack weight. It's all well and good. I'm just making this to show you how it's done if you have a lot. And I'm sure when you come close to completion of your project, you will likely have a lot more than when you started. All right, so next on start, make a protected virtual void start. So this can be overridden from the player or AI character animator manager in the future. Not that we're going to override it now, but just in case. And each list, I want you to fill with their respective animations. So for example, damage animation medium forward will get both damage animations from medium forward. Damage animation medium back will get both from medium back, and so on and so on. And I'm not going to make you watch me type all this out. I'm just going to do a couple, and then I will pause it, and I'll finish typing it, and then I'll replay the video. So damage animations.medium forward, add, and then you add both or all 3 or all 50 of your damage animations that consist of being attacked from medium damage from the forward direction. And then do the same thing with the back and left and right. Luckily, you can just copy and paste this when you get a couple going and just change one number or one word if you type it out similar to me, and it's very easy. Super straightforward. Okay. Whoops, I called that back, not backwards. There we go. Copy that again, paste that. All right, so you get it, I'm sure. I'll just do a couple more just to really nail it home. Left, and then from back to left. And then copy this again and change the 1 to a 2. And then down here we can do right, and then again, change left to right, change left to right, and then copy the whole line and change the 1 to a 2. Okay, you get it by now. I'll be right back. All right, so there we go. That's all my lists populated. And now we can grab these from these lists. But first, we need a way to make them random. So let's go back over here and let's think of a cool name for our function that's pretty straightforward. First, though, I'm going to erase this if it's two-handing because, again, I'm only going to do the general damage animations. You don't really need specific two-handed damage animations unless you really want to put some cooler effects in there because damage animations are pretty general in my opinion. So character.characteranimatormanager.get random damage animation from a list. That's what we're going to call it, okay? So let's make this function on the character animator manager because we don't have it made yet. Let's go over here and put it right here. And also, I'm pretty sure Dark Souls doesn't use two-handed damage animations in some instances. Like, I think all Colossal are general. It doesn't matter what you're holding. I could be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure that's how it works. Okay, so next we're going to say list. We're going to make it pass a list of type string, and we're going to call it animation list. And inside here, we're going to do a random.range check for the list to sort through them. So we're going to say int random value is equal to random.range. This is min inclusive and max inclusive. And we're going to pass the animation list count as 0 and the list count. And then we're going to say if animation.random value, and if you want to, what you can do is you can make a variable here, and you can call it last animation played, or last damage animation played, okay? And every time you play a damage animation, you pass a string to that variable. And if you don't want damage animations to repeat, you just say, if it does not equal this animation, then play it. Otherwise, get a different one. But I'm not going to do that. I'm not too picky about the variation to that degree. I haven't done an FLM. You can do it if you want. It's entirely up to you. That's just how to do it, though. If not, return the animation list from the random value, which will give you a random damage animation. So now we simply say character animator manager, and we pass our medium forward damage animation list, and we're good to go. And now, since this is the choose damage animation forward, whoops, it's because I made it a void, not a string, my bad. Back on the character animator manager, make sure this is public string, as in get random damage animation, not void, because void returns nothing. All right, so then back here, we can copy this, and instead of medium forward in the next bracket, we can say, well, I'm going to use medium again because I didn't make a light bracket. I'm just using medium twice. But then below that, you can copy and paste it and change medium to heavy, and then you can change heavy in the next one to colossal. And remember, this is choose damage animation forward, so it is always forward. And then we're going to use the logic above, where we actually calculate which direction. But instead of playing one static animation, we're going to call this function choose damage animation forward. So you can hear we need to change direction to angle hit from. I changed the name of the variable, that's why it's like that. So change direction to angle hit from if you didn't rename it. And then where it says if angle hit from is greater or equal to 145 and angle hit from is less than or equal to 180, we want to insert our choose damage animation forward, because we know that this is the forward position. So whatever is hitting us is in front of us. And we pass the character, and again, it is identical to the other three inserts. If you want to as well, you can put a return here. Just makes the code a bit cleaner, because once we play one, we know it can't be the other. So just after every damage animation is chosen, just hit return. All right, next, we can copy the logic inside this and paste it in every other script. You don't need to copy the comments if you don't want to. The difference is, all right, we know this is back, so we replace forward with backwards, and then on the other ones, we replace forward with left, and then forward with right. So it's one word because of how we have it set up, so it's very easy to fix or change rather. So forward turns to backward, highlight it, copy it, scroll it, and paste it, do the same thing. And then we can go up here and where it says if the angle hit from is less than or equal to minus 145. Actually, that would still be forward. So if it's greater than or equal to minus 45 and less than or equal to 45, it will be backwards. We can paste the forward one here again, and now we only have left and right. So change forward to, I need left first. Change forward to left. Control C, highlight it, paste it. All right, and now let's insert that one up there. So if it is greater or equal to minus 144 and less or equal to minus 45, we know the damage person is to the left of us. So we're playing a damage animation from the left. And lastly, let's put down here damage animation from right. And I'm going to change forward to right on this last function. All right, so that's the bulk of the work out of the way right now. So everything else is pretty straightforward. So before we only had damage, let's also call our choose which direction damage came from. Before we only had damage based on direction. That was pretty cool. But now we have damage based on direction and damage weight, which is awesome. So next we got to play a damage animation. And you might think to yourself, oh, we just play the damage animation on the character animator manager. Yes and no. We should also add some extra precautions now to make sure it looks a bit more polished. So what do I mean by that? Well, let's say you get hit by a greatsword, and then immediately after you get hit by a dagger. You don't want the dagger damage animation to play because that would make no sense. You just got hit by a greatsword. So what we want to do is make sure that the greatsword damage animation does not get overridden. Likewise, if you get hit by a dagger, and then immediately after you get hit by a greatsword, we want the greatsword damage animation to play because that makes the most sense. So let's make a comment right here. If we are currently playing a damage animation that is heavy and a light attack hits us, we do not want to play the light attack damage animation. Now, if you don't want this logic here, just ignore this step and erase it. Totally fine. So we want to finish the heavy animation, okay? So we're going to do that by basically doing a check for the last time we received poise damage. So let's go to our character combat manager because this is a variable shared by everybody. Let's make a header for last amount of poise damage received. And this is going to reset after every damage animation is finished playing. So last amount of poise damage taken, and then make a variable, call it whatever you want, as long as that is clear to you. Make it an int because poise is always an integer. We're going to say previous poise damage taken. And then to make sure this resets, let's go to our reset animator bool because this plays every time an action animation is finished. And back up in here, we're going to say character.characterCombatManager.previous poise damage taken is equal to 0. Because we know when we get back into this empty state, that means whatever damage animation has been played is now finished playing. So let's make a comment here. We can say after the damage animation ends, reset our previous poise damage to 0. All right, cool. So now that we have a way to calculate our poise damage, we're going to say if character dot is interacting, which means we have to be playing some kind of action, and our poise damage is not 0, which means we have to be playing a damage animation because otherwise it would be at 0. So if it's greater, then we can just say poise damage. So if our character is interacting and our character combat manager dot previous poise damage taken is greater than the current incoming poise damage, then we know we do not want to play a damage animation because we are currently playing a damage animation that is stronger than this one. So if the character is interacting and the previous poise damage is above 0, they must be in a damage sequence or animation. And then we would just return. So we can say if the previous poise is above the current poise, return. All right. It's just that simple. And again, if you don't like this, you can get rid of it. I think it's way cooler because it doesn't make sense to get hit by a fully charged greatsword that would send you flying, only to get tapped by a dagger and get knocked out of the animation and instantly just put back into a regular stun. Then below that, we could say if character dot is dead, well, we just want to play a death animation. We don't want to play a damage animation. Now, you can also make an iteration of this too. I have it in my game, Nephilim, so my colossal animations throw you to the ground, and if you're dead, you don't get up. So what I do is I check if my poise is over, say, 75. I know I'm in a colossal animation, so if I'm dead, I don't play a dead animation because the dead animation gets played from the animator window via a transition. Again, there's multiple ways to do this, probably thousands. Don't worry too much about it. I'm just throwing another idea out there for anybody who wants to hear it. But we also want to close the damage colliders regardless, just in case they died while their damage colliders were open and they were attacking somebody. Otherwise, they can stay open on the ground. That could be kind of weird. And then we want to return because if they're dead, there's no other logic that needs to be ran. Then down here, we're going to say if character, actually, we're going to say if is poise broken. Then we want to play a damage animation. If not, sorry, we don't want to play a damage animation. So we could simply return here. Else, I'm just going to make a comment here. If the character is not poise broken, return. So for those of you who don't know what poise is, if you're not Souls fans or who forget what it is, basically if you're attacking with a large weapon, you get a thing called poise, or if you have heavy armor on in the older Souls games, and it makes you ignore the flinch animations. So you can kind of follow through with your attack even though you're being damaged. So if a person's poise is greater than the incoming poise damage, they won't get their attack interrupted. Otherwise, what you want to say here is just disable or enable stun lock if you do it yourself, but I'm handling that via the damage animations. If you guys want me to cover a stun lock system that isn't animation based, let me know. I can totally do that. We could say character animator manager play target animation, and we pass our damage animation. And we say true because we are interacting, and there you go. Very neat, very straightforward, very clean. And then we call the play damage animation function up here. And first want to say on check which damage direction came from, if manually select damage animation is true, return. We don't want to get an animation that way if we're manually placing it. And then just call our play damage animation and pass our character. Okay, so next we have the blood the blood visual effects and the character. We've already got the sound effects done. Okay, so just the blood splatter effects. So let's make a function, make it call our character manager, and inside that we're going to say character effects manager. I believe we have a function for this called play blood splatter. Yes, we do. And we pass our contact point because that's the point we've been hit. And we are good to go. Let's put that up here like so. And then lastly, we need to make a special function to see if the character being hit is an AI, and most of the time they will be. And if they are an AI, we need to assign them a new target. So I'm going to call this assign new AI target. Going to make it require a character manager variable of type character. And then I'm going to say, I'm going to make a variable called AI character manager. I'm going to call it AI character. I'm going to do a cast. I'm going to say is equal to character as AI character manager. And if that is true, then that won't be null. So then we can say if AI character does not equal null and the character causing damage does not equal null, then we can say AI character dot current target equals character causing damage. And there you go. Now let's insert that down there. And that is pretty much all of the functionality for this script done. We still have to make some adjustments to old scripts to support this new script, which we're going to do in the next video. And also we need to do the same thing with the take block damage script. But this is a lot better, a lot neater. Oh, it's a lot more clean. Like, it's so much more modular. I'm a big fan of the system. That's what I use in Nephilim as well. Character effects as a whole, the whole system, I'm a big fan of. So before we go, let's clean up these errors. You don't want to delete these, okay? You want to comment them out, except for take damage. If you see the take damage function on the AI and player character scripts, delete it because it's gone now. Because we deleted it from the character stats manager because now it's handled from the take damage effect. So delete the take damage function from both these scripts. But now every other error you're going to get is going to be an error where it's basically, we just commented out because this is actually where we're going to instantiate our effect for take damage. Just comment these out. Basically, every time you see one of these errors, that's where we know we have to insert the take damage effect in the future. and we have to make adjustments to these scripts. So that's perfect. So just wherever you find it, it's basically on all of our damage collider scripts. That's it. Wherever you see this too, just comment it out, and that's it. And beyond that, we're good. So what is the benefit of the system again? I'll go over it one time while I'm doing this. Basically, before, we had these 3 functions called take damage on our character stats manager, our player stats manager, and our AI stats manager. And they're fine. They're honestly good. But as we expand our game more and add damage modifiers and different character effects, we want to put these all in one unique place. So if we change it in one place, we don't have to change it in multiple. Okay? And basically, this is also another bonus if you're doing multiplayer, because now that this is an effect, you can give the effect an effect ID, and you can instantiate this effect from a world effects database, which is handy for things like multiplayer, because you can only send the basic variable types over the network. So you can basically give the character effect a number, say, as an ID, and if you want the other character on the multiplayer session to know what effect you've just instantiated, you just pass the number, and then they get the effect from the character manager using that number. Again, I know we're not in the multiplayer right now, but this is just one use case of many. I know this because I have it set up in Nephilim that way as well. So if you guys did make it this far, be sure to drop a like, leave a comment. It genuinely helps out the series so much, and I would like to express a massive thank you to my patrons. As always, I love you guys. It is because of you guys I can keep doing this, and I love doing this. So in the next episode, we're going to continue cleaning up our systems. And very soon, guys, I'm going to do a polish sequence where we go through and make a little mock-up level, kill some enemies, and defeat a boss. So hopefully after, maybe not next video, maybe the one after that, we can begin it. We'll see. Because next video, we have to finish the character effects for take block damage. Anyway, guys, I will see you all in the next video. I hope you all have a lovely weekend.